Hi, I'm glad you could join me, and welcome to an exciting new alternative to traditional ways of investing your hard-earned money. An alternative that could change your life.
Around the fringes of settlements such as this is land that is designated Greenbelt. Greenbelts were introduced in the 1947 Town and Country Planning Act to avoid uncontrolled urban sprawl into the countryside. But that was almost 60 years ago, and many things have changed since then, especially the size of England's population.
More and more pressure is being exerted to grant planning permission to develop land which is currently classed as Greenbelt. So why am I telling you all this? How does the English countryside and Rubicon Estates represent an opportunity for you? Well, let's find out. Take it down, Steve.
And we all know what's happened to the financial markets over the last few years. What used to be considered safe investments have become risky, with potential for little, if any, growth. Stock markets globally have been unstable for the last 15 or so years. The state pension is virtually worthless, and private pensions are at the unpredictable whim of the world markets. Bank and building society rates are such that they do not offer a viable option for long-term investment. But what are the opportunities open to the smaller investor? This is where Rubicon Estates and Greenbelt come in. Greenbelts are rural areas with special status, restricting development. There are 14 Greenbelts in England, accounting for 35% of the country. Greenbelts were introduced after the Second World War. Their purpose then was to encourage redevelopment of areas destroyed by bombing, to stop built-up areas sprawling out into the countryside, and to avoid neighbouring towns merging together. Then the population was 49 million. Now it is passing 60 million, an increase of almost 23%, and is predicted to reach 65.7 million by 2031. And that population is mobile, moving from one part of the country to another, chasing employment and prosperity. In fact, it's predicted that 4 million people will move to the south of England over the next 25 years. This scale of population increase puts a huge strain on existing housing and creates a massive demand for new homes. This is demonstrated by the fact that property prices have risen by over 200% over the last 10 years. And yet the cost of building a house over the same 10 years has seen little increase. So why have property prices risen? Because the value of the land underneath has increased. And why has the value of the land underneath increased? Because there's such demand for it. So inevitably planners have to look for alternatives. And the most obvious solution is to release areas of Greenbelt land for development. As a result, in 2004, agricultural land increased in value by 30%. In fact, the government is positively pushing authorities to meet the targets the government have set for new housing, further increasing the pressure on Greenbelt land. So just because land isn't due to be released from Greenbelt now, doesn't mean it won't be in 5, 10, or maybe 14 years' time. And this is where Rubicon Estates' proposition becomes clear. To buy a large acreage of Greenbelt land from a farmer or a private landowner with no planning permission still costs many hundreds of thousands of pounds, way beyond the means of most private investors. But, and this is the crux, when planning permission is granted on what was previously Greenbelt land, the value of the land skyrockets, making the owners of the land a lot of money overnight. Now this all sounds like a great idea, and it is an excellent way of putting money aside for the future, with a potential for profit. Plus, the land will always have a value. But not many of us have the money to buy up acres of farmland, or the time to scour the countryside looking for suitable land. So how can a smaller private investor such as you take advantage of the massive potential of this type of land? 2 words: Rubicon Estates. Just as buying shares allows you to own a small piece of a big company in the hope that their profits will rise and therefore your share value will increase, Rubicon Estates makes it easy for you to buy a small piece of a big chunk of land. And here's how. Rubicon Estates has an entire team dedicated to identifying suitable land. Land that, whilst currently in a green belt, in their opinion meets all the criteria for future development. Now, once a suitable site has been identified, Rubicon Estates' legal team begin negotiations with the landowner. If all goes well, they purchase the land.
Once the land is purchased, surveyors design a notional layout plan defining plots by reference to detailed land survey coordinates. These plots are then made available for sale on a first-come, first-served basis.
Okay, so you decide to buy a few plots. Here they are. But what happens next? Firstly, decide how many plots you want to buy. Secondly, pay a small administration fee.
Contracts are exchanged, and once the full payment is made, you are the legal owner of your plots.
Okay, it's yours. Now what do you do with it? Stop. No, not quite yet. Now this is very important. These plots are not sold to you, the buyer, to build a house on right now. And remember, they are sold without planning permission.
Once all the plots are sold, a management company is set up, and Rubicon Estates puts in a contribution per plot as capital.
The management company works towards getting planning permission for the site and an eventual sale, but any sale has to be sanctioned by a majority of shareholders.
Once a sale is completed, the proceeds are distributed to the plot owners, in proportion to the plot area owned.
Now, there's no guarantee that planning permission will be granted. The sale of the land could take 10, 20 years, or possibly more.
If the land is sold, the profit is potentially far greater than that from most other forms of investment.
And it's worth remembering that Rubicon Estates is part of the First Homes Worldwide group, and its directors have been a successful part of the property investment business for over 20 years. So there it is. You buy a carefully chosen plot of land and then sit back, safe in the knowledge that Rubicon Estates has done all of the hard work for you, and your plot is in a prime location for future development. Oh, and remember, you'll always own the land with or without planning permission. So give it some serious thought. It's an affordable stake in the future. Compare it with other possibilities and see what you think. It's a unique opportunity that really could change your life, your family's life. I wish you every success. Okay, Steve, we're off.